Welcome. You're tuned into Life is a Sacred Journey. Every week, we bring a new perspective to aging and caregiving. Here is your host, Micheal Pope.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the virtual neighborhood of Life is a Sacred Journey. I am your host, Micheal Pope, and it is my honor to be with you this Friday morning. It's been a glorious week, hot and beautiful here in California. I know in other places it's been rainy and cold. I want to get started so we don't run out of time. This morning, I came on a few minutes early for those of you that are already and were ready with us to talk about Udo Erasmus. He is a legendary health educator and the founder of Udo's Choice, a global wellness brand that's transformed the way people think about fats and holistic health. I'm going to start admitting him in a few minutes. He is the creator of the machinery and method for pressing oils with health in mind. You're going to hear more about that. What it means to press oils that are not focused on the shelf life, but with your health in mind. And is internationally recognized as an expert on omega fatty acids. Udo is the author of the best-selling Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill. And he has an upcoming book, Your Body Needs an Oil Change, with further challenging myths. He's going to challenge some of those myths today about fats and modern nutrition. He has a background in biochemistry, genetics, nutrition, and a master's in counseling psychology. And I loved when I was doing my homework, he said something that just hit me right in my heart that, psychology is supposed to be the study of the spirit. And I was like, whoa, that just like, whoa, okay. But anyway, we'll talk more about that. Udo blends science and soul, and his 10-step model for total health goes beyond the diet, addressing emotional wellness. And, we've talked a lot about emotional wellness and stress here. Purpose and inner peace. Peace. If you have ever received an email from me, I signed it by saying peace, right? And I mean peace not only just in the world, but peace within you. And he has delivered 5,000 more presentations, 3,000 interviews, spoken in all 30 plus countries, and he appears in Eating Our Way to Extinction. That's a big deal for me, and has shared stages with Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra, both mentors to me. But I told you earlier when I came on, my precursor moment with you, never in a million years did I put the two and two together until this morning when I looked at my supplements and I flipped them over and put them in the little case, because I put them in the little case and carry it with me. And the bottle, the Flora bottle that I have says Udo's Oil 369 Blend. That's been something I've been taking for a long time. And I never, beep, 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 beep. The universe did not say to me, Micheal Pope, one day you're going to meet this person. So he's been a part of my life in my kitchen for probably about almost a year, when I started thinking about why I was aching so much when after exercise and all of those kinds of things. So life is a sacred journey, family. As always, I'm excited you're here, but I am excited this morning that you get to hear the wisdom of this incredible human being who I have gotten to know last night in my crash course on him, Udo Erasmus. So welcome to Life is a Sacred Journey, and I am so excited to talk to you this morning.
All right. Well, thank you for putting me on your sacred journey.
Well, it is. I'll start and ask you to share your story. But in 2016, I was diagnosed with cancer. It was stage 2. And it was, it was like this weird thing where the doctor just said it and then said, this is what we're going to do to you. And I kept thinking about it, thinking, wait a minute, though. There has to be a reason that this is happening. You're just telling me something, and then you're telling me how you're going to adapt my life, but you're not telling me how to live after all of this is done. And a good friend of mine said to me, Micheal, you know why all of this is happening to you? And I said, well, no, girlfriend, I wish I did. And she said, it's because you've been thriving on neglect. Wow. And I thought, what the hell does that mean? And I
Yeah,
started,
really.
yeah, right. What does that mean? So I started doing my homework. And I'm a plant lover and a gardener and all those things. And I equate it to that. And you are as well, because I want your pesticide story to come out. But I realized that my plants could live a really long time without water. Like I could forget not to water them. I could forget not to give them, the eggshell. I could forget all those things, and they would still be alive. They weren't thriving, they weren't growing, but they were still alive. And I thought that's what she meant. That I'm still alive, I'm still living, but I wasn't
Not
taking
thriving.
I was not thriving. So, Udo, you talk a lot about how you got to this place and in the interviews that I viewed last night. And I'd like you to begin your story there, about your life as a child, uh, World War II, and then how you, at 38, realized that you were poisoning yourself, and just bring us into this, and then we will really dig into the oil story, because I have some questions about some of the oils that are out here on the market that people are being told that are good for them, and I want people to hear, kind of the truth so they can discern themselves. So welcome to Life is a
Yeah.
Journey. And thank you again for taking time out of your life this morning to be a part of ours. So tell us.
All right. Thank you. Well, so um, my parents came from Latvia and Estonia, German Swedish background.
Yes.
And my father had a farm in Latvia. And in 1938, I think it was, Hitler and Stalin made a non-aggression pact. So they decided we're not going to fight with each other. They broke it later, but then they started fighting. But so they did this pact, and then as part of this agreement, Latvia went to the Soviet Union, and part of Poland went to Germany. But there was nobody from Latvia or Poland at the meeting. They just took it because they were big and these were small countries.
Right.
My father loved the Russian people because they have a lot of heart.
Mm-hmm.
Hated communism because they took everything away from you.
Yes.
So he lost his farm in Latvia and he was given a farm in Poland. And the Polish farmer whose farm he was given ended up being his farmhand on his own farm.
Oh, wow.
And there was a little tension there, as you can imagine. And so my dad says, look, we're living in crazy times. There's a lot of really crazy stuff going on. Let's just run the farm the best way the farm should be run. And then when all of this crap settles out, then we'll sort it out. And they became really good friends.
Oh, wow.
I was born on that stolen farm.
Wow.
1942, right? Middle of the war. And when the war ended, we were refugees fleeing out of Poland. These were mostly women with young children,
Yeah.
on horse-drawn hay wagons, because they were farms they were fleeing from, and dirt roads, no military presence. And the communists were chasing us in tanks and trucks. And the Allies, which we like to think of as the good guys, they were using us refugees as target practice, shooting at us from planes. And in the midst of that, my mother had 6 kids, 6 years and younger.
Wow.
On her hay wagon. And she decided, when it was winter, she decided it was safer to go through the snow-covered fields than to stay on the road. But she couldn't take 6 kids with her. So she had to make a Sophie's choice and had to leave 4 of the kids behind. And she dropped them off at a farmer's place, and the farmer was going to take them to relatives in Berlin. But everybody was fleeing out of the place. And so by the time we got to our relatives' place, they were gone. So we got dropped off in an orphanage. And so I spent some time in an orphanage, and eventually she got out. She made it out. And then her sister heard about what happened, and she then came and found us and reunited us with the family. I don't remember a lot of it because I was 2.5.
You were
but
young.
I remember not feeling safe. That was the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Being hungry and not knowing what I could depend on, because every day was a different story because we were in the middle of craziness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up very shy, and I kind of like a born scientist, because I was really insecure. And so I was always trying to figure out how things worked. Because when you know how things work, that gives you a certain amount of predictability, and that gives you a certain amount of safety, right? So I broke a lot of stuff when I was a kid, experimenting with things, right?
Picking things
apart.
Yeah,
and then all the time, and I took a lot of things apart, and I never put many of them back together. That's like the trail of destruction behind the scientist, right? Anyway, when I was 6 years old, I listened to adults argue, and they would get so intense, and it would make me really uneasy, right? And one day I heard another one of these arguments about some really trivial stuff. To me, as 6 years old, it was really trivial. So it must have been really trivial. And this thought came to me, said, man, there must be a way that humans can live in harmony. And this little cocky voice of a 6-year-old who doesn't know how complicated everything is said, I'm going to find out how. So that's been my driver all my life. Wow. 6 years old.
Wow.
There's got to be a bet. And it's kind of like there's got to be a better way to live than this.
Yeah. And
then that
it became the foundation for how you started to explore your life and to live into your life. And I always say to people, don't negate your childhood, whether it was bad or good, and however you measure that, because those terms are given to us and the meaning of them is given to us. But weigh it and see how some of those things have become the catalyst for your success. Another weird word, right? Another weird word to measure, but still, how it's become the thing that has brought you joy in this time in your life. And so you move forward and.
Yeah, well, which is exactly where I was going to go. Is I look back at it now. It was not fun then, but I look back and now, what a gift. What a gift, because we got stripped of everything. We lost everything. The farm, the country, the community, the chairs, the cutlery. We lost everything except the clothes we were wearing, the body we were in, and the life in that body. And so I got my culture stripped from me very early. So I never trusted culture that much. So I was always starting from scratch. So what is a human being? Not by what somebody in America thinks, or somebody in Canada thinks, or somebody in Germany thinks, or somebody in Poland thinks. What is a human being from life's perspective?
Yes.
It's like, what is the truth according to life? Right? Because according to life, it can be very different than according to culture, or according to nation, or according to religion even.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And so I was always trying to find out what's true, what can I depend on? So I got into science, first in chemistry, physics, math. That became really boring and theoretical. So I got into biology. Biology, you got to be dead to not look around at this planet and say, what an incredible place we live, right? And I wanted to know everything about it. And I had religious experiences of awe studying biology. I didn't study it to get a job. I studied it because I wanted to appreciate the nature of nature more, right? And they call it biology. And I knew that, in Europe, you learn word meanings out of Greek and Latin words, because a lot of the language is out of those languages.
Mm-hmm.
Bio means life, and biology is the study of life. And I wanted to know what life is. And I pictured in my head that at one point we were going to have a beaker full of something liquid and shining, and we'd say, wow, there's life. I wanted to know it like that, right? We never learned about life in biology. We learned about form and function.
Yeah.
Never got a handle on life. I actually said to my lab partner one time, I said, we should really study ourselves, because in ourselves we have form and function and life all together, and we don't have to kill ourselves to get to know ourselves. Well, that's pretty deep, right, for a teenager.
Yeah, yeah.
And my lab partner, his eyes just glassed over. He
Right.
get what I was trying to say. It's like, okay, that was the last conversation with him about that. But I was disappointed. It was like I was getting biology. I was learning a lot. It was really beautiful. I had great experiences, but there was just something missing. So then I thought psychology, the study of soul. I knew the word. I'm going to study soul. It seems to me that soul might be something important around here, right?
Yeah.
Well, in psychology, you study thoughts, beliefs, and emotions.
Right.
No soul.
No soul.
Then I went into medicine. Medicine, we call it healthcare. I wanted to know what health is, because I thought if somebody got sick, like you were talking about your situation,
Yeah.
okay, if I knew what health is, I could come to you and I would turn you around in the direction of health, give you a push, and watch you get better.
Yeah.
But I'd have to know in what direction to push you, and I'd have to know what health is to determine that direction.
Yes.
So I'm only learning about disease in medicine. So I go to the dean. I said, listen, I came here to study health, but we're only learning about disease. Do we get to learn about health later? Like in the second, third year? First you find out what's wrong and then you figure out what's right?
Right.
No.
Yeah.
So I said, so what is health? He said, we don't know. We're working on it.
Wow.
That was probably the biggest disappointment in my academic life, right?
Yep.
And the truth is they're not working on it because they keep just focusing on what's wrong. And of course, that's good business, because if you give a pill to suppress symptoms, then you have a client for life. But if you cure them, then you lose your client.
Right.
So it's a good business model, but from a health perspective, it's atrocious.
Yes. Yes.
So I only lasted a year. We were also told that a doctor should always sound as though he knows what's going on, even when he doesn't. And we call that lying on the farm.
That's lying, yeah.
Yeah, they call it PR. Experts are supposed to have answers, right? And they think, well, your clients are so stupid that you can just put one over on them anytime. Anytime you just make shit up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I went back into biochemistry and genetics because I was learning more about health in biology. They didn't call it health, but I was learning about form and function. So I went there, and then eventually I left because there was still something missing and I didn't know what it was. And when I was 17, my heart started to ache every day. Every day. And there was nothing wrong with me physically.
Yeah.
But there's always this uneasy feeling in my chest. Something is missing. Something is lost. Something, there's something that needs to happen. It's not happening, right?
Right.
And basically what happened is I ran out of distractions.
Oh, wow.
I knew that the rich people weren't happier than I was because I'd met them. And all of the things that people do to distract themselves, hoping to find their, whatever it is, their completion, their success, their wholeness, their love, their peace, their beauty, whatever that is, right?
Whatever, yeah.
I ran out of distraction. And then I left university, and I wasn't done yet because I was still looking. I was definitely a searcher, right?
Yeah.
I got into psychedelics. And in 1964, it was actually before I left university, I had one LSD journey. Very small amount, 60 micrograms of LSD. The big dose was 600.
Right.
Mine was 60. I rolled on the floor laughing. in time to Mozart music. I was really something. And the tears were running down my cheeks
Yes.
while I was laughing. And it struck me as the funniest thing that I had ever come across. That everything that I was so studiously looking for in the world. And at one point, I thought that if I could learn everything, then I would be happy.
Yes.
Yeah, of course you can't do that, and it isn't true. But that's what I thought at one point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it struck me as the funniest thing that what I was so seriously looking for on the outside was all already inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of melted the door off my war baby personality.
Mm-hmm.
It just took the door of it. Oh my God, I have 1,000 ways I could live. I have so many options. Oh my God, it never occurred to me that I had any options.
Right.
I was just this guy who was just going down the track, right? And then it took me about 15 years to figure out how I wanted to live.
Right.
And then I guess I'll tell you this story. So I got to a point where I said, okay, no more psychedelics because I only get one body. I got to look after it. And they can be pretty hard on you, depending, of course, on what you take and all of that. And I decided no more psychedelics for 2 years. But then what do I do instead? So I started thinking, okay, well, so I know I can live any way I want to live. Like where there's the model for me. Who would be a good model for me? Because my parents weren't, because they were shell-shocked by the war.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So who would I look as a model in the social system that I know? And it occurred to me one day, well, let's see, they're talking about this guy called Jesus. They're still talking about him 2,000 years later.
Right.
Nobody remembers my grandfather. He hasn't been dead for 50 years. I don't even know his name. Right? Because he died before I was born, right?
Yes.
So I said, okay, well, there must have been something there. Right? If they're still talking about this guy 2,000 years later, there must have been something there.
Yeah, exactly.
And I kind of got into the red letter edition. You know what that is?
No, tell me.
Red letter edition? Okay, so it's a Bible, St. John's version of the Bible.
Okay.
Oh, King James version of the Bible. Okay. And everything Jesus says is printed in red ink.
Yes.
And all the rest of the Bible is in black ink.
Yes.
Because I wanted to be focused. It's like I'm 2,000 years late to the party.
Right.
Right.
Gotcha.
I want to know who this guy was. And I got to a point where I said, well, actually what I want to feel what he felt. Ooh. That created the poetry that he lived.
Ooh.
And it kind of came like out of, the Gospel of John starts. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Okay, you see, it's like, wow, I don't know what that means, but that sounds pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
And then it goes on, and then it said, Word became flesh and dwelt amongst us, full of grace and truth.
Yeah.
And the hair goes up on the back of my head, even just now when I say that. So my question was, well, what did John experience that inspired him to write that? Because you don't write poetry if you're not feeling anything.
That's
right.
Amen.
So then I said, yeah, okay, but why stop with John? I want to know what Jesus felt.
Yeah.
And so I took this red letter edition and I started putting little things he said on to the test. And I had some magical experience. And part of the one that I always go back to is, there's a say that in what he said, one of them is, kingdom of heaven is within you.
Yes.
Okay. Now, how many Christians actually time to bring their focus in you inside where the kingdom of heaven is supposed to be?
Right.
No, so people memorize the words and they do the rituals and they blah, blah, blah about it and they memorize it, right? Well, what is the experience?
That's right.
So what's the reality of it? And then the second thing he said, first seek the kingdom, and then everything else will fall into place. Right?
Yes, Udo, yeah.
And how many people actually do that, where they first seek the kingdom? I asked a guy on a bus one time, He was a born again Christian. I said, so is the Bible more important or a human being? Well, he said the Bible is more important.
Mhm.
So I said, you would sacrifice a human being for a book? And he said, yeah. I said, you're completely crazy.
Yeah. And that's
It's like, oh my
yeah.
God. Right?
Yeah.
Because here you are, you're living in life, you're living as life, in life, surrounded by life, and you're making a dead tree with ink splattered into it more important than the life on the planet?
Right.
So what the
Right.
hell is wrong with you?
Right.
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 So,
And I love what you're saying, because that to study something to the point that you memorize it, but yet not able to execute some of the wonderful things that it's describing when it says that you can, that to me is like, that's
yeah,
been my downfall when it
yeah,
comes to the practice of religion.
yeah, yeah. And talk about sacred. Sacred is an experience,
It's an experience.
right?
Yeah.
Sacred is not a monkey memorize.
No.
Sacred. What
No.
does it feel like? Even if you have to go pee really bad,
Right.
there's a beautiful experience there.
Yep.
So I would say that qualifies as sacred,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So then, anyway, I put some of this to the test. Had some really magical experiences. It was beautiful, and then there was this group of Christians that came up from California to Canada, where I lived. Right?
Okay.
They called themselves the Jesus People's Army.
Wow.
And that should have been a warning to me, because army, in my experience, is not it's not one of the better words, right?
Right.
But I missed it because I
Yep.
thought, okay, these guys must be trying to figure it out just like I am.
Yep.
And when you try to figure things out and you do little experiments and you try stuff and you have experiences and you learn stuff. So we're all going to get together. We're all going to share our stories. We're all going to learn something from each other, and we're all going to leave the evening enriched.
Yes.
I was completely clear about it, and sure about it. So I
And
went to their coffee house,
yeah.
and I sat down at a table, and this guy immediately swooped in next to me. That should have been my second warning, but I missed that one too.
Mm-hmm.
And because obviously I was the next victim.
Right.
Right?
Of course.
Got to get this guy. Jesus
Yeah.
People's Army is after you, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I didn't introduce myself. I just looked them in the eyes and I said, it must be possible to see God and live. Because when we were kids, we were told if you see God, he kills you.
Right.
So it's like, wait a minute, it's like I have this like a BS meter, right? It's
Yes.
kind of,
Yes.
wait, he loves me unconditionally. He made a whole world for me to live in. He keeps me alive when I sleep, but if I look at him, he kills me.
Right.
It's like, what's wrong with that picture? So I said that to him, and I thought this would be the beginning of a beautiful, deep conversation about a sacred topic.
Mm.
Well, that's not how it turned out. He jumped out of his chair and he's bouncing around the room with his arms flying around his head, screaming at the top of his lungs, "You're from the devil! You're from the Antichrist! Get out!" It's another one of those experiences that I'm really thankful for now.
I was going to say, thank God for the rescue.
but wasn't at the time. So I go slinking out of there and I'm standing in the dark on the sidewalk. And I'm saying, okay, well, maybe I asked the wrong question, because we were told as kids, there are certain questions you shouldn't ask.
Right, right.
But they wouldn't tell us what those questions were, because knowing me, if they'd have told us what the questions were, I would have asked them.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly.
So I'm standing there, I say, okay, I got really confused and really desperate.
Mm.
And sometimes desperation makes you sincere.
Mm.
So what I did is I decided to head out into nature to clear my head, because that's how I used to deal with stuff like that. And I ended up hitchhiking out to a beach that was completely deserted. There was just me on the beach on the west coast, so you could almost see Japan if the Earth wasn't round, right? And decided to spend the weekend on the beach.
Nice.
And there was somebody had made a little plastic dwelling, draping a plastic sheet over logs. So there was, okay, there's my hotel for the weekend. And I went in, I lay down and fell asleep. And in the middle of the night, I woke bolt upright from literally dead asleep. And there was this being made of light, just there.
Wow.
Made of light. Couldn't tell if it was male or female. Wasn't an angel because it didn't have wings. This is all just my interpretation, right?
Your interpretation.
And no words, no labels, but this being embodied a message and kind of answered the question about what did Jesus feel that made him what he was, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so it embodied a message, and I could put words to that message. So it wasn't talking to me. I came up with the words that described that being.
Mm-hmm.
And the words were, I am come not to judge, but to love.
That's right.
I am come not to judge, but to love.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I have never heard a better succinct summary of Christ's message.
Yeah.
I am come not to judge, but to love.
Yeah.
And then all my confusion was immediately evaporated. I have never had a question since that day, and this was in 1970. So
Wow.
I was 28 years old. I have never had a question about what was the message, the essence of the message of the master. And all the masters have that message in different ways, in different cultures,
Yes.
at different times.
Yes.
Same message.
Yep. Yep.
And it was kind of like there was the conclusion to my question of what does it feel like to be like that? And then that became my standard. If you don't set a standard, you are not going to learn too much. But every time, so I say, okay, I am come not to judge but to love. I like that as a standard.
Yep.
Right? It's a whole lot better than the war I started in.
Yep.
Right? And there's never ever going to be anything wrong with love.
Nothing.
Yeah. So that's cool. That's a cool standard. And then every time if you hold the standard and you never deviate from, you never let the standard go, then every time you screw up, you're going to learn something that takes you a little closer. And sometimes we call that failing your way to success. Right?
Yeah.
So that's like the core story. That's my core story, right? Then I got married, and we had 3 kids, and my marriage broke up, and I was very upset. I was not here to judge, not to love at that point.
Right.
I was like really, really upset, right? And I took a job as a pesticide sprayer because I wanted to kill something. And pesticides were invented only to kill living things.
That's right.
That's what they do, right?
Yeah.
So I took a job as a pesticide sprayer, got 99.5% on my exam, so I knew my stuff.
Wow.
Right? And for 3 years, sprayed them really carelessly. Even somebody said to me, aren't you worried you're going to get poisoned? I said, no, I'm immune. We call that testosterone poisoning in young men until they have their first self-made disaster.
Right.
And then they sort of wake up. Anyway, so I got poisoned by pesticides. I went to the doctor, said, what do you have for pesticide poisoning? She said, nothing. That was it. Very short, a very short, honest answer.
Yeah.
She didn't make it up like we were told to do. But so I said, okay, well, I'm on my own. But I had the background, so I went into the research and started reading about health and nutrition, disease and nutrition.
Wow.
And I learned about the essential nutrients, 18 minerals, 13 vitamins, 9 essential amino acids from protein, 2 essential fatty acids from oils. These are all nutrients that you have to live and be healthy, but you cannot make them from anything else in your body. So they have to be brought in from outside.
Okay.
If you don't get enough long enough, you die. This is part of the definition. But if you bring enough back into your body before you die, then all the problems that come from not getting enough are reversed, because life knows how to make your body work if you make sure you give it all the building blocks that it needs to do that, and you don't poison yourself with junk that shouldn't be in your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you make sure digestion works, because if digestion isn't working, you will not get your nutrients and you will get toxicity created in your own digestive tract. There's the picture of it, the summary of how you get physically healthy.
And then the idea, the question that comes up for me, the idea that medications override, for an example, I'm going to use an example. Somebody has high blood pressure, and instead of having a conversation about what you're eating, how much exercise, how's your stress level, they give you these medications that then prevent you from actually some of those nutrients and things that would bring the blood pressure down. You cannot take them and eat them while you're on the high blood pressure medication. So
yeah,
that's weird to me that that a doctor wouldn't or medical professional wouldn't say to somebody, let's dissect where you are, what you're doing, and instead give you a pill that long term will mess up your kidney, your liver, your bippity bippity boo, and so why? I mean, you talked a little bit about why that happens. We all know, but why do we begin there instead of begin with the holistic approach? And I'm using that word broadly.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, and this is an issue, you got to think about it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, we came out of nature. We are part of nature. We
Right.
are natural beings.
Right.
If you take your clothes off and run off into the jungle, you're just part of nature.
Right.
So we're part of nature, and nature or life created health as an adaptation for natural creatures to live in a natural system. And everything the body was ever made from, starting with your mother, starting in your womb.
Right. And I was going to say,
where you get your nutrients through your umbilical cord, but then with mother's milk, which is raw food, by the way, right?
Right. That's right.
And then it's going to be really good for you if your mother's eating properly, but if your mother's taking drugs, you're going to get drugs in your milk.
Right.
Right? So life created health in nature. And for every creature that eats, which includes humans and most animals, right?
Mm-hmm.
All their food was fresh, whole, raw, organic, local. Mm-hmm. And for human beings, probably largely plant-based, because when the hunters only had rocks to hunt with, they came home empty-handed most of the time.
Right.
But the plants don't run away and they don't fight back, so it's easy to hunt down and kill them. And so if the hunters came home empty-handed, the family ate vegetables, ate plants, right?
Right.
That's the standard if you're looking to life standard, according to life. Well, medicine is not according to life. Medicine is according to profit. It's according to money. It's according to, because you can patent unnatural molecules, and then you can collect on the patents and get monopolies and make a ton of money.
Yeah.
But you can't patent natural substances.
Mm-hmm.
And so if money is what your goal is, then it's better to be in the world of synthetic molecules. Right. And that happened probably around 1900. And the people who go look into that say the Rockefellers were involved. They owned Standard Oil. They learned carbon chemistry. Carbon is very versatile because you can make 4 bonds on every carbon atom. So you can make all kinds of really fancy 3-dimensional structures. So you can make all kinds of interesting molecules that have all kinds of interesting effects, but none of them are natural.
Right.
If you can patent them. And so they make those and they suppress symptoms. Or, medicine is good as symptom suppression.
Yes.
Crisis management, life support systems, where they keep you breathing when by
Yep.
nature you stop, and they monitor or manage your downhill journey into the graveyard. None of those are health. We call it healthcare. It is a misrepresentation of the service they provide, because what they're doing is disease management. That's what it should be called.
Yeah.
Healthcare is looking at how it was in nature, how nature created us, what we need according to nature, according to life, in order to be fully functional.
Yes.
And then aligning with nature and our nature. That's how you get healthcare.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so this is something, a human invention. We're the only creature on the planet that thinks that we're smarter than the creator of the universe. Right? And then we do all stupid things. Like one of mine is I work with oils, right? I got stuck on oils because they were really confusing. On the one hand, I read a study that says omega-6 is an essential nutrient, and you got to have it. You can't make it. If you don't get enough long enough, you die. You got to bring it in from outside. And if you bring it back before you die, because death by definition is not reversible.
Right.
If you bring it back before you die in adequate quantities, you get your health back. That's the definition of essential.
Right.
Omega-6 is an essential nutrient, says the research. And the very next piece of research said omega-6 gives you cancer and kills you. And I'm going, bah! What? How can that be? I have to take it so it can kill me? That's like that God question,
Yes.
It's like God loves me unconditionally, but if I look at him, he kills me.
Right.
Right? It's like this is another one of those things. So I said, well, I must be not getting something, because you can't have it both ways.
Right.
And it was that made me look into how oils are made. And I found out oils, omega-3 and omega-6, are the most sensitive of all of our nutrients.
Okay.
They need the most care. We give them the least care. We fry them, and they're damaged by light, by oxygen, and by heat. In the frying pan, they're damaged by all three of those at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So they're the most sensitive molecules. They need care, and we're not giving them the care. And when we make those oils, the industry wants a long shelf life on these short shelf life molecules.
Yes.
So they treat them first with sodium hydroxide, which is a very corrosive base. Then they treat them with phosphoric acid, which is a very corrosive acid. Then they treat them with bleaching clays to take the color molecules out, because the color molecules absorb light, and the light then damages the oil. So they get rid of those. And then they go rancid and they smell bad. So they have to be deodorized. And to deodorize them, they have to be heated to frying temperature for about half an hour to blow off the rancid molecules. And when that's done, you have a colorless, odorless, tasteless oil. Then they stick it in plastic bottles, and oil swells the plastic, and then the plastic leaches into oil quicker than into water, right? And then you have an oil that has a 2 or 3 year shelf life, and you can make it. Where are you?
I'm in California.
You're in California. Well, you could sell that oil in Tokyo, and you could sell it in Johannesburg, and you sell it in Berlin, and you could sell it in Moscow. So now you have a huge market. And industry likes huge markets because they like big money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But but in the course of doing that, the oil is 0.5 to 1% damaged.
Oh, wow.
And when I found that out, I said, oh man, I've been poisoned by pesticides. I need my food clean. Why are they doing that?
Right.
So I called the Oil Chemist Society.
Of course you did.
Umbrella organization. This is like in 1980, probably 3 or 4, right? I got poisoned in 1980, right?
Okay.
My gut experience was 1970. My pesticide poisoning was 1980, right?
Yes.
Just because I knew what the standard was, that didn't mean I was quite smart enough to live up to it.
Not yet. Not yet.
No, I'm just still working on it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I said, I want to talk to a researcher. They put him on the line. I said, well, when you know that this processing you do on the oils does damage, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
He said, well, one of the reasons we do that is we can get rid of half of the pesticides in the oil. And, my head goes nuts again. It's like, I've been poisoned by pesticides. I didn't even know at that point that there were pesticides in oils because, I hadn't paid attention to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in my head, I'm saying, you mean the other half of the pesticide stays in the oil? That's what I'm saying in my head.
Yeah.
To him, I said, why don't you start with organically grown seeds? Then you don't have any pesticides that you need to deal with. And I guess he had never heard that question. He was like total silence on the phone.
Oh, okay, I was going to ask.
I don't know how long, 3 seconds or 3 hours. It was a long time, it seemed like. And then he came back and he was really angry. He said, I don't know what your problem is. The oil is 99% good. It's only 1% damaged. And if you got 99% on an exam, you'd be damn happy, wouldn't you? So now I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I'm overreacting. It's only 1% damaged. So then I said, okay, well,
wait a minute.
There's a, yeah. So
I said, you said, wait a minute.
Yeah, no. So I said, we have a saying, when in doubt, do the math.
Right.
Right. When in doubt, do the math. Why? Because numbers don't lie.
Right.
So I said, okay, so if I have a tablespoon of an oil that is 1% damaged by the processing, how many damaged molecules are going to be in that tablespoon of 1% damaged oil? And it's a question I'm going to ask you, because it's when people hear this, because they're in the same position that you're in, because you don't know how to do the calculation. There's a way to do it, but it's a specialized thing. So I know how to do it, right?
Right.
So tell me how many damaged, give me a number.
Oh my gosh. Millions. It's millions, billions of.
How many? Give me one number.
100 million.
100 million. Okay. 100 million has 8 zeros, right?
Eight zeros.
Okay. So if you put a 6 in front of that and you added 11 more zeros, then you would have the right number.
Wow.
The actual number of damaged molecules, and these are now not natural anymore.
Right.
And they don't belong in the body anymore, right? And wherever they go, they won't do what oils are supposed to do in your body. They'll interfere with what's supposed to be going on. Okay. So in the 1 tablespoon, you have 60 quintillion damaged molecules. So it's a 6 followed by 19 zeros.
Wow.
So your estimate of 100 million is like about 600 billion times too low. It's almost 1 trillion times too low.
Wow.
So then I have a question to you and to the people that are listening.
Yep.
And the question is, okay, you're at the airport, you're going to get on a plane, you got your boarding part, you're about to board, and somebody taps you on the shoulder, and you turn around, and it's Mr. Only Ever Tell the Truth.
Okay.
Right? And says, by the way, did you know that your chance of crashing and dying on this flight that you're about to get on is almost 1 trillion times higher than you thought it was? Would you get on the airplane?
Not me.
I was in Ireland. I told them I would canoe back to Canada. Right?
Absolutely.
And so and why I say that is like to make it real.
Yes,
we are doing something to ourselves that is 1 trillion times worse than we think it is.
Wow.
And so maybe we should examine that. And when I found that out, I said, oh my God, I can't get healthy on oils like this. We should make oils with health in mind. What does that mean? You have to make a system of making oils, pressing, filtering, settling, filling. Has really, really, really tight, no light, no air, and no excessive heat gets to the oil. Okay. From the time it's in the seed to the time it's in a brown glass bottle, in a box, in the nitrogen flushed, in the fridge, in the factory.
Yep.
And then you ship it to the health food stores. It's refrigerated in the stores. You take it home and you refrigerate it at home. You never, ever, 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 ever use it for frying, because frying is the worst damaging thing we've ever invented to do to food, and we do it to the most sensitive of our foods.
Yes.
So you fry oils. Well, if you fry oils, they fry you.
Yep.
They fry your health. Fried oils fry health. Fried foods fry health. When you fry foods, whether it's carbs or protein or fat, each one, independent of the others, increases inflammation, which gets you pain, and each one increases the risk of cancer, independent of each other. That's what we do when we fry food. So I say to people, you got a frying pan at home? Sure, everybody does. Go get it, turn it upside down, whack yourself upside the head with it so it's associated with pain, and throw that stupid thing out. And
Yeah.
go back to cooking in water, and then go step by step to get eating raw, fresh, whole, raw, organic, as much as possible.
I love what you're saying. I love that because at least twice a year, I do a 40-day raw fast,
Yeah.
cleansing. And I have to tell you, I always feel so incredibly healthy. I mean, and when I say healthy, it's even, and I'm going to be graphic with you, audience. When I go to the bathroom, when I poop after the 40-day fast, it doesn't smell. It doesn't
Well,
have
yeah, well,
the
if you're not eating for 40 days, you
yeah,
won't have any poop to smell.
yeah, it doesn't smell. When I come back to start and I eat raw, and you don't have the bloating, and you don't have the
Yeah.
inflammation. You don't. Your
Yep.
skin is clear. And I equate it to aging. Actually, when we look at people who are aging in a way, such a rapid
Hmm.
trajectory, where you go, whoo, and when they tell you their age, you're like, that can't be. That can't
Yeah.
be because they look
Yeah.
20 years. I think a lot
Yeah.
of it is the food they ingest, and then the processed.
Well, and other chemicals and toxins and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and the world is already
But
toxic, right?
and
So
even negative thinking will age you. So, but we're filled with love, and we're filled with peace.
yes,
Like our universal essence of actually us and everything else in the universe is peace. That's the universal. There's more peace in this universe than anything else.
right, right.
But you don't know that if you don't connect to it within yourself.
That's
Because your
right.
connecting point to universal peace is in the core of your being, and you have to sit still and allow your focus to go to
To
the core
go,
of your being to experience it. Then it
yes.
becomes real for you. Then you say, okay, oh my God, peace is everywhere. Oh
He
my
says
God, look at that. Oh, everything's happening in peace.
yep,
Even galaxies explode in peace.
that's
And the
right.
peace is not affected by the explosion.
That's right. That's right. I love
Right? It's like,
that.
whoa.
I
And
love
then within that peace, your individual essence is a flow of unconditional empowering love that is a fraction of solar energy that we call life,
Mhm.
right? And that life is the master in your body. It's omnipresent in your body, omniscient in your body, and omnipotent in your body. There's God in you,
Yep,
right?
yep,
and uh, and it's your resident expert.
yep.
It's your internal leader, and it is the master in and of your body.
I love
Now,
it.
again, you have to sit still and bring your focus inside to feel that all your sensations are sacred,
Mhm.
including the poop and the pee and the
All of
and
it.
the breathing and what it feels like to be alive.
Yeah.
And and we hardly ever spend time with ourselves like that. We're human doings. We're busy, 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 do 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 do. And then if you do too much, you become doo doo, right? But we're supposed to be human beings, and being shows up in stillness.
Absolutely.
So
And
you take a moment to do nothing. And if you stretch that moment into 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, and you literally learn how to sit still for an hour, there's nothing but sacred in your life.
that's right. That's right.
It's like it's
Wow.
not complicated. It's like we are that, and we were given the gift. And if you don't spend that time with yourself, because some people say that's selfish. No, this is a gift I was given only for me. I can't experience your gift for you,
No,
but you can't experience my gift for me. That gift was given to each one of us, and if we don't unpack that gift, it's a wasted gift
it's a
because
wasted gift.
nobody else can experience it for us.
That's right. That's right. Well,
right?
I don't.
So how do you balance your life? You need to make some time for stillness, for being.
and and I have learned that the hard way. Okay, and
We all learn it the hard way.
learned it the hard way. So I want to get to, because I can't
Yeah,
believe we've been talking for an hour. This has been so amazing
yeah,
for me. But I want to get to your book.
yeah.
Is it already out so that people can get copies of it? Oh, it is. Okay. Your body oil
Your
change.
body needs an oil change. Your
Okay.
body needs an oil change. It's the new book. The original one is Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill.
Okay.
Um, I have a book called The Book on Total Sexy Health. It's about human nature.
Okay.
It's actually quite inspired, but I will have to rewrite it and rename it, because when I wrote it, it just kind of, it was channeled, you could say,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Beautiful. It's like, and I'm very interested in human nature and total health, based in nature and human nature. That's what I'm working on now. I'm 83, so I better get
Oh,
going.
oh,
I
you
better
better
get
get going,
I
bro.
better get going. Yeah.
But I think
So
you got some time. I think you
yeah,
got
yeah. So
But the other
so
before other because I want people to understand the thing about the vitamins or the nutrients, the oils. So
yeah,
the eight the la 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 369 blend
yeah.
has what in it, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, because I
It's
want
9 ingredients. We created a method. I'm in the Hall of Fame in the natural foods industry
okay,
in my country for starting the industry of making oils with health in mind,
okay,
because the industry makes them with shelf life in mind.
right, right,
And obviously what you're going to do if health is your goal is different from what you're going to do to the oil if shelf life is your goal. And for shelf life, they'll damage the oil, and for health, you can't damage the oil.
okay,
Right. So I started that. I started with flaxseed oil. That was my first oil. 1986, we started that. And then it's not balanced properly because you need omega-3 and 6, both essential.
hmm
Both need to be undamaged. And they need to be in the right ratio, because the same system in the body converts them into all kinds of regulating hormone-like substances
oh,
that regulate everything in our cells on a moment-to-moment basis. And if you get too much of one, it crowds out the other, or you get too much of the other, crowds out the one. So the balance has to be there. And so we made a blend. It has 9 ingredients. Everything that's in it is there for a reason of health. Everything that's not in it is not in it for a reason of concern about health.
okay,
And so we made one-stop shop that gets you everything you need, high energy. We've had athletes 40 to 60% increase in their performance if they do their sport to exhaustion
wow,
within 30 days of taking a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day of the oil mixed in their foods, and their intakes spread out over the course of the day. So we started the blend in 1994.
okay,
And I've been working on this now for over 40 years. And there are always people who say omega-6s are bad and seed oils are bad and you shouldn't take them. And these are all people. None of those people who write that stuff and say that stuff has ever talked to me, because
oh,
it's completely
okay,
wrong. Because
okay,
it's completely wrong. And there's always been some. And right now it's really big.
yeah,
Omega-6 are bad, seed oils are bad. No, they're blaming omega-6s and seed oils for what should be blamed on the damage done to them by industry processing and by food preparation in the
hmm
frying pan.
hmm
And so if you make the oils with health in mind, they're actually essential for your health. So the people who are saying don't use seed oils and don't use omega-6s, they're actually giving you advice that will kill you if you really follow it to the letter.
wow.
And it'll take probably 2 to 5 years to kill you, because eventually your body runs out of those oils, right?
And
And you have to have them. They're essential.
they're
Essential means you
essential.
got to have it.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Absolutely. And so I'm kind of like the lone voice in the wilderness saying, no, no, no. None of these guys have done their homework. You know, they used, people used damaged oils to do research, and then they have some negative effects.
Of course.
And then they blame it on the oil instead of blaming it on the fact that those oils are damaged. And nobody talks about the damage. I did it once on Fox National Television in New York.
Yeah.
In New York, I talked about the damage, the 60 quintillion damaged molecules in a tablespoon. And Fox canceled the show that I was on at the end of that season. And I've been on other shows where we talked about that. They loved the interview. Then they didn't play it, but they played an ad for an oil that is damaged because they were making money from that oil. They were part of the advertising, right? So people don't tell you the truth if they're money.
Yeah.
First of all, if they value money more than life, and then second, if money is the thing that they're about, then they won't say whatever hurts the people who give them the money to advertise their lies.
That's right.
Right? That's how it works, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, okay. Yeah. So anyway, the total sexy health, somebody said, don't just call it total health. That's what I was going to call it, total global health. Just call it total sexy health. Why sexy? Because sexy is a power word.
Yes.
And when he said that, I said, I can't call it total sexy health. I don't know anything about sexy. And then I went home and I started thinking about it. And I said, no, wait, I know a lot about sexy. Everybody does. Because sexy is about, gets your attention.
Yes.
It's full on. It's energetic. It's vital. It's not just about sex and sexual positions. It's about about juice. It's about vitality, right?
Yes.
So then I rewrote the book and put sexy everywhere, right? And I think it was a good experience for me, but I think it trivialized the importance of the topic.
Gotcha.
So if you read the book, forgive me for doing an experiment, but the book is amazing.
I will read the book.
But I would take the sexy out if I was redoing it, and I will redo it at some point.
So friends, I could talk to this brother for another hour to 2 hours because our personalities are very alike that I have lived my life asking questions, not always finding the answer, possibly, but at least being inquisitive enough about asking the question.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to share with all of you before we say goodbye to you this morning is, Thursday is my day that I spend with my granddaughter, who is soon to be 2 in June. And yesterday on our walk, we saw this little insect. It looked like a centipede, but it wasn't. I don't know what the little thing was. And it was crawling on the sidewalk, and she stopped walking. She bent down, and she continued to watch this wonderful creature. It crawled all the way out down the sidewalk, out into the street, and I thought, oh boy, it's getting ready to commit hara-kiri. But it didn't. It turned back around before the car that I could see that was way up the street, and it came back and it went into a crack in the ground. Mm-hmm. What I want to say to you is that she made me stop and pay attention to this little creature. I mean, this thing was small, and we were there for at least 10 minutes in our walk, bent down. Mm-hmm. And I was bent down. So this is the other thing. So I had to bend down. Now she's closer to the ground than me.
Yeah.
But I balanced myself. I was grounded. I was paying attention. We weren't talking. I wasn't trying to explain to her what this little creature was because I didn't know. But we were breathing and we were experiencing life. And what I realize is she has been a tremendous gift to me because she has made me slow down. And what our guest Udo has said to us this morning is very much that. One, you have to slow down to feel the energy of the earth. You have to slow down to notice that this little bug could feel the vibration of that car way far away from my sight, but it felt it. And so therefore it turned around and went down a crack. It was headed across the street. Mm-hmm. But you got to stop to notice all that. Secondly, I am not, as I tell you, we have to say this precursor or they'll won't put this video up. I never tell you what to do with your body. I never tell you what to take. But what I do is share with you the things that have made it possible for me to have experienced 68 years of life. And when you all tell me that I'm lying when I tell you that I'm 68, that's the reason you can tell me I'm lying that I'm 68.
Yeah, that's a compliment. It's a compliment.
Exactly, it's a compliment that I'm doing the oils. And like I said, in a million years, and I use the Flora products because of the very thing that our guest said. They're in brown glass bottles.
Mm-hmm. In a box, in the
fridge,
box,
in the refrigerator
section,
of Whole
in the health food stores.
Yeah. So do your homework, get his books, go online, read, do a little bit of reading. You can do that in your quiet time. Go to a park, go to a beach, go read, and learn about this beautiful temple that you have, because it was created to restore itself. Simple as that. And when he said about the Bible, there's people who live to be 120 and 140 and so forth in the Bible. Just dropping that for you, okay? And now we eat so much processed foods that our body is crying out to us with inflammation, disease. And I love my girlfriend who told me that the word disease means your body is at ease with your lifestyle.
Yep.
So
which means the natural state would be a state of ease.
Yes. Which means the natural state would be a state of ease.
Yeah.
So before I let him go offline, I'm going to say to you, I'm going to let you go first. Go out and, I always tell you to do this. Pet a cat, pet a dog, my favorite beastie. Go hug a tree, hold on tight to it. Let it tell you what's going on, because it knows better than you. Spend time in the world with people, smile at people, say good morning, ask them how they're doing, and be the joy that we need in order to survive. If you go into the world bringing bad vibration, you're going to get bad vibration back.
And dig out the beauty that you are, that you have not yet experienced. There's way more that we all have that that's where the rich lives.
That's where the rich lives. And take care of yourself. Love yourself. Look in the mirror and say, I like that person. Don't wait for someone else to tell you that they like you. And
that was another one. The master's one message. What was it? Love God, love yourself, and love your neighbor as yourself. Love.
Love.
And you can't go wrong. And they didn't make any other laws. And they didn't make any other laws.
There are no other laws.
If you follow that law, you don't need any other laws.
And Udo, this is the thing. I always say to people, go back and think about that. If you're not able, you must not love yourself. Check it out. Love God, love yourself, love your neighbor. Well, if you don't love God and you don't love yourself, your neighbor is shit in a handbasket to you.
Yeah, of course, because the expression of your state of being is automatic.
It's automatic.
So if you feel rich, you'll express rich. If you feel if you're afraid, you'll express fear. You'll find things that are dangerous. If you're angry, you'll find enemies. You'll create those enemies.
Yeah.
By your behavior.
Oh, That's where all the
So,
isms come from and all the drama
yeah,
that we live
all,
in.
all the isms that should become wasms.
Yes, exactly. I'm going
Yeah.
to write that down because I like that. I'm going to use.
Yeah, that's not an original from me. Somebody from India said that. All isms should become wasms.
I love that. I love that. Uh, so, friends, go have a good
Yeah.
weekend. Come back, and we'll see you next Friday at 8 a.m. We'll bring somebody else, or I'll do my whatever I do.
Yeah.
But
You bring me back because we only just got
we're
started.
going to bring you back because you and I have only just begun, my friend.
Yeah, yeah,
And if you are somebody out there that is feeling sad and depression, and you're feeling like you're wanting
yeah,
to take your life, please call the 988 hotline number. There are people on the other end. I love those volunteers. I used to be a volunteer. They are there to help you through that moment. Life is way, way more important than that 1 second that you're
yeah,
feeling that doom and gloom. Live
yeah,
beyond it. You just heard
and
Udo's story.
and ultimate, you are the light in your body, and find your way to the light because that light cannot be depressed. That light is always filled with love and joy and gratitude.
That's right.
And
Oh,
if you're feeling negative, it's only because you have not yet discovered something in you
yes, yes,
that is unbelievably magnificent.
right. And the persons that in your life that squash that for you, forget about them. They
Yeah,
don't
just
matter.
don't well, just don't squash it for yourself.
That's right. That's right. All right, friends. Have a good Memorial Day weekend. Be safe out there on the road, but enjoy yourself. All right. See you soon. Peace.